Last week, I kicked off our election campaign for the Senate elections. We've outlined our plan for recovery, one that would help our families, workers, businesses bounce back from the pandemic. A set of aspirational pledges that form the core of our recovery plan for Wales. It wasn't the normal sort of election launch, and over the next few weeks, it won't be the style of campaigning we're used to either. It goes without saying there's been little that has been predictable in the last year of politics here in Wales, and that goes for across the UK and beyond. But life in general, and political life, are full of things we're not expecting, full of challenges for which people expect politicians to step up, delivering leadership to steer the ship through. The coronavirus pandemic is of course the most serious one of those that has affected each and every one of us over the past year. It has been a bleak time for so many people, economically and socially. And for some watching today, it has brought the bleakest experience of all, as they've lost loved ones too soon. And as the Welsh Conservative leader, I extend my heartfelt sympathy and condolences to all those who have paid the highest price during the most painful of years. And I extend my sincere thanks to everyone who has gone the extra mile to deal with those who have become infected by this unexpected challenge. At the top of the list are our outstanding NHS staff and other health and social care professionals. Thank you so much for all you have done and continue to do, creating those bridges of compassion between loved ones during the crisis. We all agree that the unexpected challenge of the last year has shown how clearly Wales and our communities are stronger when we're united, and how our determination is stronger than we ever imagined to get this virus under control and get it back to normal. Over the course of the last 12 months, mistakes have been made by all governments of all colours across the world. In Wales, as a constructive opposition, we've agreed with Labour on the majority of occasions to ensure we save lives and protect the NHS. But we've also called them out where necessary, when we feel they've gone too far, not acting in the best interest of Wales. Fighting political games rather than the virus, such as the cruel 5-mile rule, which was wrong and which we oppose vigorously. On 90% of the steps the Welsh Government took, we were fully in support. We supported the Welsh Government measures 61 times, abstaining on 9 occasions and voting against 6. And when we voted, whether it was for, against or a deliberate abstention, we did so having considered the merits of the issue. But sadly, there has been occasions where we felt too much politics has come into play, where Labour decided to be different for being different's sake. And as the figures sadly show, it didn't make Wales any safer or less susceptible to catching the virus. And I am pleased on occasions our calls have made a difference. Remember all the policies we called for and Labour dismissed and then implemented them at a later date, such as shielding and increased business support. Some come too late, some half-hearted, but Welsh Conservative changed things for the better. And we can do so again in May as we move out of the pandemic and onto the road of recovery. A big part of the return to normality in Wales is the rollout of the vaccine programme. I am unstinting in my praise for the NHS and pharmacies, councils, the armed services and the thousands of volunteers for making this happen. And beyond thankful for the vast bulk of the Welsh public who are making sure they take the opportunity to get vaccinated. And I'm also so grateful to my colleagues in the UK Conservative Government for sourcing and supplying the vaccine to enable this vaccination programme to go soaring ahead. And I am extremely grateful that we had finally left the European Union by the time the vaccine came on stream. Make no mistakes about it. If Labour had had their way, we would still be locked into the disastrous Brussels vaccination programme right now, where the rate of vaccination in Wales and across the UK would be such a diabolical level, we'd be hearing the First Minister spinning about sprints and races while delaying the whole thing so that staff weren't left twiddling their thumbs. So while I congratulate the NHS in Wales for what they have achieved, let me also be clear that thank God we didn't listen to Labour. If Labour had had its way, then we'd have to be locked into the bureaucratic and ineffective European procurement. At our time of need, this would have left our people and our nation horribly exposed, with half the people who have been vaccinated today sat at home unprotected, worrying about the protection against the virus and the rest of the wondering whether normality will ever return. It's a frightening thought, But thankfully the UK government ignored Labour's calls. The vaccine is critical in helping us get back the same level of freedom that we enjoyed before this pandemic. Like many others, I don't want to go back to the old normal. I've even learned how to navigate Zoom, but I certainly don't want a new normal designed by the state. I don't want Labour's version of a recovery that means they try and foist their ideologies and their fetishes on us. It's why they don't want to give Wales a detailed roadmap out of lockdown. They love the power, they love the control. They believe the state knows best. But if we've learned anything, it fails to build a better Wales. No aspiration, no ideas to give us the confidence that can help Welsh families, workers, businesses to bounce back. They don't trust us, the people, the entrepreneurs, the businesses. They always think government in Cardiff Bay knows best. As they've shown when they've spent their time fixated on whether they could stop us buying children's clothes or a new kettle in a supermarket, rather than tackling the virus. And in the recent puff piece documentary for Labour, one minister let the cat out the bag. Talking about the easing of regulations imposed on our daily lives, she said, "I think if you give an inch, they'll take a mile." In that one sentence, she summed up Labour's attitude. They just don't trust you enough to keep yourselves, your families safe, or to keep to the rules. Labour's health ministers accuse those of us who want a roadmap out of the lockdown nightmare of being voices on the fringes. He should tell that to every grandparent in Wales who is wondering when they might be reunited with their grandkids, or every gym, pub, restaurant owner who just wants that window of opportunity to get their lives, their businesses back on track. These people just want an indication of when, not a promise written in blood, a simple window of opportunity. They just want the most precious thing of all during the last unexpected year, hope. But Labour doesn't want to give that to the Welsh public. They want a normal they can continue to regulate and control. In short, Labour have enjoyed taking our freedoms away just a little bit too much. They hang on to them for a little too long. They've grown a little too fond of hearing themselves pass judgment on normal people, normal lives, and the public's desire to return to some form of normality. The First Minister and his cabinet see these lockdowns not as a pause to control a disease, but as a pushing of the reset button on society. It's not about dealing with a threat, it's about Labour seizing the opportunity to change lives and behaviours that suit their own socialist visions. Just because they don't like foreign holidays, they don't want people to have one either. Just because they don't like a pint, they want to keep our pubs and restaurants closed for as long as possible. Just because they don't like cars, they don't want people driving. And just because they don't like freedoms, they prefer to take ours away. Just because people voted the wrong way to what Labour wanted and Wales backed Brexit, they did everything in their power to stop it happening. Just because they can't trust people to think like them, they'll stop us making choices. It doesn't have to be like this. We told Brussels to back off. Now it's time to tell Labour and Corbynite Drakeford to back off too. And it's time too to put an end to the other dangerous aspect of Labour's mindset. The philosophy of putting their stamp on everything just for the sake of it. Just because Wales can do things differently under devolution shouldn't mean the Welsh Government should always do things differently. I don't just believe in a joined-up approach across the UK for the sake of it, or from some abstract constitutional perspective. And don't worry, I'm not going to go on and on and on about the Constitution like some others do. I will just say this. Now is not the time for more constitutional reform that will lead to chaos. An independence or abolish referendum would just be a distraction from the job in hand. Rebuilding our economy, investing in our public services, creating the golden opportunities for the future which Wales can undoubtedly enjoy. Those two lecturers in Cardiff Bay, Messrs Drakeford and Price, do not care about your job or your family if it gives them the opportunity to play out ripping apart the United Kingdom. I believe in a UK-wide approach and in our union because it works. And that's what the Welsh people want. Labour didn't do it on Brexit, but they need to do it on the union. Listen to the people. This time last year, people were much more responsible and kept to the rules when those rules were broadly the same in every part of the United Kingdom. And it kept people safe. People want a common framework of rules and they want a detailed roadmap out of lockdown. And under the Welsh Conservatives, you will get just that. We will vaccinate Wales to protect our people, provide a roadmap out of lockdown and restore our freedoms as quickly as we can. But this isn't about coronavirus. There is a far bigger challenge we need to tackle. And we will be confronted by the biggest truth about Wales. And it's not one which the government runs the police force or which decides the rules for the Welsh parliamentary elections or which international student exchange gets used. The biggest truth is Wales has a weak economy that has got weaker under 22 years of Labour. The Welsh economy was in decline before the pandemic hit. At the start of 2020, GDP fell by 2.4% in Wales. Before the pandemic, Wales had fewer people in work than the UK average. The average worker's wage in Wales was £50 a week less than a worker in Scotland or England. And businesses in Wales pay the highest rate of tax in Britain. 10 Welsh towns are in the top 20 most economically vulnerable towns in the UK. And a quarter, yes, a quarter of our population is living in some form of poverty. 2 decades of Labour has delivered nothing but poverty for our poorest communities, and it has to change. COVID hasn't just shown our communities at their best, it has laid bare the deep-rooted problems that exist in Wales thanks to the Labour Party. Because for Labour and the economy, we've had it in a hard and fast lockdown for the last year, following a slow and deliberate lockdown for the last 2 decades. We have to change course. Turn the page. And the Welsh Conservatives will kickstart the Welsh economy, not just to recover from the pandemic, but from 2 decades of Labour failures. Our economic recovery plan for Wales will deliver more jobs, hope, security for everyone in Wales. It will rebuild and rebalance our economy so that we can level up across the whole of Wales with new technology and new investment. Today, I can set out what that economic recovery plan means in practice. We will set a minimum target to create 65,000 jobs in Wales over the next Parliament, with at least 15,000 green jobs. We will create Innovate Wales, a one-stop shop for businesses which will support new businesses, encourage existing businesses to grow and export. This will involve bringing together the Development Bank for Wales, Business Wales, and recreating the best aspects of the Welsh Development Agency. We will deliver 100,000 new homes over the next 10 years. We will deliver a tax cut for small businesses by scrapping business rates and looking to reform the outdated tax on growth. We will implement a COVID bounce back package which includes the establishment of a £2.5 billion Rebuild Wales Investment Fund. A sole focus on economic growth above all else, on job creation, business expansion, supported by the right physical and technical infrastructure. In the same way that Wales has shown that we can step up to the mark to tackle COVID, we need Wales to step up again to deliver the economic kickstart that our children and our country needs. The message from the Welsh Conservatives is that we can make that happen. From vaccines to VAT cuts, Boris has shown what Conservatives can do in government. And we will help the parts of the economy hardest hit by COVID and most abandoned by Labour to grow again. My pledge to the tourism sector is this. A Welsh Conservative government will limit VAT to 5% for tourism businesses until 2022 to help you get back on your feet. But we want to go further. We need to see more businesses in Wales take the next steps to grow. We will kickstart that growth with our Jumpstart scheme, which will pay the employer national insurance contributions for the first 2 staff that new micro businesses in Wales hire for 2 years. With a strong economy, we will create more jobs, helping to fund our Welsh NHS and deliver first-class schools. Now let me predict the reaction to this economic ambition. On social media, there will be rejection from the usual suspects. Quite frankly, so what? They've admitted they don't know what they're doing, and they're right. We've seen it every day for the past 22 years. And if we've made one big mistake during devolution, it's been pandering to those voices. The Welsh Conservatives are here to set out our alternative vision based on alternative values. And that is why the cosy bubble and the soggy centre-left feel so threatened by the new energy of the Welsh Conservatives. Their view of us is that we are only tolerable providing we oppose Welsh Labour government in a way that doesn't rock the boat. And that doesn't challenge the central values of Labour and their plaid helpers, hardwired into devolution over the years. They want us playing by their rules, on their terms, to produce the sort of government that suits them and their establishment interests and agendas. Those days are over. As someone else once said when told to sell out the principles of their country, no, no, no. And in order for us to get Wales to realise its own confidence again, as Welsh Conservatives, we need to have confidence in ourselves. I talked earlier about politics now being more unexpected than ever before. 18 months ago, the pundits were predicting Boris Johnson would be the shortest-lived UK Prime Minister in history. And now look at us, the strongest working Conservative majority in Parliament since the days of Margaret Thatcher. When I led this party into an Assembly election 5 years ago, it was in a very different landscape to where we are now. 5 years ago, people told me Brexit would not happen. It did, and we delivered it. And now the same people are telling us Conservatives we can't come top in Wales, that there isn't enough of us. Well, I have some serious news for those people, especially the establishment academics and media types. There are over 500,000 Welsh Conservative voters in Wales. That's more than have ever voted Labour in an Assembly election. We know that over 550,000 people voted Welsh Conservative in 2019. We brought Labour's red wall down 2 years ago, and we need to do it again. And we're the only opposition party that's in a position to say that and actually be in a position to make the change happen here in Wales. We are a force that can build a better Wales with more jobs, better hospitals, first-class schools. And as Conservatives, we need to be vocal. Vocal about the change we can bring. Vocal that people support our plan. Vocal with your support that we can win. So tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbours. We need every single person who voted for Boris and Brexit to back the Welsh Conservative plan for recovery. We kept our promise on Brexit. We will do the same on our recovery from COVID. Boris also banished Corbyn. We still need to extinguish the Corbyn flame in Wales embodied by the First Minister. He was his principal cheerleader, but you have the chance to finish the job and end the remnants of Corbyn for good. The Welsh Conservatives can break Labour's hold on Wales. We can turn the page after 22 years of failure and broken promises. We can end their waste and make every precious penny and pound actually count. We can stop the constant call for more powers and focus instead on delivery. We can terminate their different for the sake of it mentality and stop pandering to the obsessive separatists. We can stop their unnecessary controls and restore our freedoms. We can change our country for the better. Together, let's build a better Wales.